Now, for the main event. So first, I kind of went digging around really quick just to have for an article because I was kind of curious. Oops, forgot to post that. But I did originally see this in the Melee Games Discord. I think Hassan there, or Meta Hypothesis in the Gaming News had posted about Duke Nukem. Video from Apogee, which I'll be playing in just a moment. But first, which was Duke Nukem 3D's 30th anniversary tribute. Duke Nukem 3D turning 30. He's getting up there. Holy shit. But I just kind of was first. I wanted to, like I said, I just kind of get an article up, and this is kind of. Okay, so that is you, Hassan. Okay, cool. Yeah, he says that's me. Awesome. So yeah, all credit to you for posting that video in there and making me want to take a look at this. Dan Blugger says too many of the games just became branching what if scenarios. I didn't mind it. I just wish they like stuck to like the end results instead of just having it like gloss over and not just stick to. But I get it. And it says I prefer those old 2D fighting games for DBZ. The ones on like the Super Nintendo and stuff like that. I'm trying to remember the titles for them because some of them were wild, but those were always fun. Dragon Ball Age 1000 will be a kart racing game. No! All right. So yeah, Duke Nukem 3D turns 30 years old, brought swaggering FPS action to real world environments. 96 release broke the Doom clone mold while adding humor and personality. With Duke, you played a character, not just a game. 3D version came after 2D platformers, which I didn't know about till well after the fact. And this is the thing, my first introduction really with Duke Nukem mainly came from the N64 version. So that is also why I decided to talk about getting the Nintendo 64, because it kind of fit into this whole thing, because on the N64 is where I first played Duke Nukem 3D. It was a censored version, of course, for the most part, especially for like the scantily clad women and everything. That was all censored. I didn't know initially, but man, the multiplayer was also a lot of fun for it. Especially when you use like the shrinking gun on people and squish them. And then we used to again screw around with the cheat codes and the cheats in general and like turn people immortal, squish them indoors and make a whole string of it. But that was kind of my first real experience with it. But yeah, and this is the funny thing. I was just a day before this, because it says one of the most important games in PC gaming history turned 30 on Thursday. On January 29th, 1996, 3D Realms introduced its 2D platformer star to the 3D FPS world on PCs. However, Duke Nukem 3D did much more than add another dimension to the series. It broke the new era of 3D FPS gaming out of a Doom clone rut. It did so with multitude of seasonings, interactive and destructible environments, real-world settings, 90s pop culture and satire, and plenty of Duke-branded humor. Like I did the Respawn Roast Cantina last week, just a day before this. If only it fell the same day. But yeah, here we have a tweet from Scott Miller, Apogee 3D Realms founder. For an old, it looks like a map setup, but now mainly I would go through this, but we do have a video, like I said, thanks to Hassan there, and we're going to take a look at this before we get into even playing the game today. But I wanted to take a look at this and see what it's. I checked out a little bit of it, and that's why I was like, you know what, let's go for it. This should be fun. Going back to the days of the beginning of Duke Nukem. All right, gotta repause music. Okay, here we go. We'll be going a little bit longer today, I think. Hassan, I can't believe I'm older than this legendary game, bro. I understand that feeling.
That he was calling heavy metal at the time because he just wanted that sort of, heavy metal attitude. And I said, look, why don't we name it after a character like comics do? So we started batting around names, and I remember I came up with the name Duke because I felt like it was a good, strong, powerful first name, and Todd came up with the idea for Nukem as the last name. So bitchin'. Really, the Duke Nukem look didn't come about until my partner, George Broussard, he changed the hair color from white to yellow and made it a short military crop. And he gave Duke this bright white smile.
Damn, I'm looking good.
It just turned into a fun little platformer with shooting. He didn't wear armor.
Dan Blackberry says, growing up with Doom and Wolfenstein, by the time Duke Nukem came along, it was such an edgy run into that over-the-top action that became pretty common after. Yeah. Especially this him being so, like, cutting all the one-liners and stuff like that. It was so much fun. I can only turn it up so much for this. I appreciate it. I'll try. Hang on. Let me try and boost the volume. All right. Well, I'm glad my voice is doing good.
Duke in 3D.
The initial version.
Tell me if that's a little better, and I'll adjust the gain.
A bunch of levels. It just wasn't turning out fun. Kill me. At one point, like I was watching the Duke team members work on the game till 5 p.m. say we are done with work, and then play Doom together. I just like.
So was that any better? I just want to make sure before I go too far into this. And thank you for catching that now. But yeah, he was saying that the game was not fun initially, and then people were going and playing Doom. Which I probably would have been the same way. All right, let's go and play some Doom. Hang on. I can adjust the gain a little bit more. So the only problem with some of these is that it does get a little low. All right, let's try that.
Pulled George into a room, closed the door, and said, this game is not turning out fun. Everybody is stopping working on it and playing Doom. You have to intervene. And
how do we readjust it to make it more Doom?
To George's credit, he
or more fun? It'd be like Doom.
And took it over himself, and that was turning out really fun. They kind of like used a bunch of known movie lines as Duke things.
Groovy.
Good. Okay.
In 1990, I moved here to San Diego. In 1995, Lonnie Manella, the casting director, was in my studio.
That's what I love too with Duke, because once you learn, especially learning what they were referencing, it just added that extra level.
On and I started doing wacky voices and being crazy, just to kind of show off to her. And she said, "Wow,
yeah, it did." Dan Blackright. Dan Blackright says the first Duke Nukem looked more like Commander Keen than a proper shooter.
Voices in video games. She goes, "Well, there's gonna be."
Just make it Doom with boobs.
That I think you'd be great for. The very first game that I auditioned for, and I landed it that day.
Damn, I'm good.
Lonnie Manella was with me in the studio as the director, and she dialed up George Broussard. George gets on the phone, and Lonnie says, "George, tell John what you think the character should be like. What is he based on? He's a badass character. Who's that badass you have in mind?" For some reason, he thought Charles Bronson. No, Charles Bronson. You want me to talk like Charles Bronson? He goes, no, that's not it. And Lonnie suggested that I imitate Clint Eastwood from Dirty Harry.
Perfect.
So you got to ask yourself, do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? And George went, I like that tonality, but Duke Nukem is a roided out, huge, muscular dude. I said, okay, I'll just lower it.
It's what you miss.
Lucky? Do you, punk?
The over-the-top action heroes of the day.
Like this now for what, 30 years?
We could not have picked a better voice actor for Duke with John St. John. He relished the role. To this day, he played it with gritty enthusiasm and just embraced the direction that George Broussard gave him for the character.
Oh, yeah. I get requests for these lines on social media all the time. But, of course, I found a way to monetize it, so now I just
good old cameos.
Jason King is chewing gum and kicking ass on Kung Fu Hot Dog. And guess what? He's all out of ass.
Duke Nukem added a level of tongue-in-cheek machismo to the first-person shooter genre.
Oh, Clippy B.
All you know about first-person shooter is Doom and Quake and, demons and hell and, blah, blah, blah. And then you have this completely over-the-top character. I think the biggest impression that it made on me was that a game like this doesn't have to take itself so seriously.
No, that was the fun thing with all the chun.
I mean, that was the first time I think I played a game where the character had like a personality, more like a 90s action film, Last Action Hero, Demolition Man, like all these movies had a bit of like an awareness and like a comedy factor.
Don't give up your day job.
The folks at
San says Arnie could have made the best Duke Nukem movie. What a missed opportunity, dude. Especially like prime, like Predator days and stuff like that. It would have been just phenomenal. That would have been awesome. Like either Predator or Commando era, like that would have been so cool.
Apogee, they came up with all the lines. Well, they stole most of them, obviously. Duke Nukem's lines were mostly stolen.
I have
stolen? It's just paying homage.
Bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
I think what happened with Scott Miller and George Broussard was they clearly were big fans of genre films such as Evil Dead and They Live, and they basically just ripped lines from those.
But it works so perfectly.
Iconic films and kind of introduced it to a new generation of kids that didn't even know what those lines were from.
Hail to the king, baby.
Hail to the king, baby.
Oh, there were some lines that I was triggered by Lonnie during the recording session. For some reason, I find the captain's log somewhere, and I couldn't stop thinking about a turd at that point.
A turd floating? No way. You guys are funny. Okay, here we go.
Huh, the captain's log.
I can't do it.
Huh, the captain's
I can't. Every time I think about it.
Once you get that laughing fit, you can't stop.
Rockin'.
He put together a demo for the building.
Oh, you gotta love it.
In a very short amount of time, and it was just like very impressive.
Build really was started from a public announcement from id Software announcing all the features of Doom. This was in early '93, so I would read through the features one by one. It was obviously really ambitious. And so I started prototyping. I knew about the angled walls and the ceilings and floors, but the important thing is it was good enough to get Apogee's interest.
Ruby.
I actually used the trick, the big feature, the ability to look up and down. Nobody really told me how I could do it, so I thought to myself, well, I could just shift the horizon up and down. It might not be correct perspective.
Wow, I don't think about that nowadays.
The limitations of the Doom engine, they really couldn't capture cityscapes because the game only allowed flat ground and vertical walls.
One of the biggest things I added that really changed the design of everything.
But that was the thing when it came to the Doom engine, despite its limitations, like how versatile it was for people to take that engine and just go wild with it. Strife is still like a big one I'll point to just because it was a first-person shooter, but with with a lot of RPG elements and storytelling and stuff like that was added into it. Which just was, I mean, if you think about it in relation to Doom was just a straight up, first person shooter. But then like people just took it and got creative with it. And that's some of the things that I'll always talk about is that we just kind of miss now is we just don't have that kind of crazy levels of what people are able to take and just get creative with. So, because now it's all just so tied to one particular engine and nobody's really looking to stretch it beyond its limits, it feels like sometimes. At least to me. Sometimes it just feels that way, that they aren't truly trying to build something out of it and just kind of copy paste because it's safe and easy.
The thing was the addition of slopes.
Duke, because it had the ability to do slanted walls, was able to do slanted roofs. Dumpsters that actually had the slanted roof. It allowed them a lot more freedom in level design.
We had contract artists that would come and go, but the core group that was in there every morning, evening, night was 8 to 10 people. And for that whole game, there was
I remember that layout.
Me and Alan Bloom. Alan and I basically had our freedom to, I was never told, do a sushi bar or do a this or that.
Dan Blackred says MDK was another one that really took some chances and did something different back then as a shooter. I always remember seeing MDK around, but I've never played it. That'll probably have to be added to my list of games that I need to check out. Because I like I said, I remember seeing like the box art and stuff like that around. I think did it get a console release too? I want to say I saw it as a PlayStation game. Let's see. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it was on PlayStation. I'm sure different than the PC release, so I'd want to find it on PC and see what. Oh, it's on Steam. Okay, is it? Yeah, it is. Okay, I'll have to check that more out later.
Once we had gotten the level started, like okay, it's going to be a sushi restaurant, and here I fleshed out most of the geometry. Then a lot of input came in. Like we tested every night. The Abyss.
I never
with
found the
whole cave.
karaoke.
There's an earthquake halfway through where stuff comes down and everything. And this is a big hallway that goes like this and then changes when everything comes down.
Hollywood Holocaust, the opening map. You know, you had memorable locations. The movie
I still love that
screens,
map.
and you could discover the secret behind it and so on. Arcade games in there that you could play.
Don't have time to play with myself.
You know, it wasn't a big map, but it just set the stage for the entire experience and get the game off on the right foot.
With Duke 3D, their environmental design with interactive environments was so important to FPS games. They raised the bar when they did that.
That's one doomed Space Marine.
That was the first FPS where the world seemed
That
real.
was the
Like,
cool
Doom was
thing
always
with the
weird
destructible
space
parts of the
stations and
environments that you could do.
environments,
It was fun
and
destroying the
city
bathrooms
street,
in
and
Hollywood
there's a store,
Holocaust.
and there's a nightclub and there's a pool table and there's a bathroom. I can't really remember seeing any game prior to that that kind of nailed that feeling of authenticity.
We can't compete with what Doom does well. It's very dark, gritty, very serious. So we decided to do a lot of things that Doom wasn't doing. Gave Duke Nukem a voice.
So that's kind of an interesting point, because again, they were trying to do something that wasn't being done, and I just feel like it's the opposite now, where everybody's just trying to do what was successful, and they're not trying to look to branch out and get creative like this anymore. I mean, I know there are the few games out there that do, and the thing is that at least, and this could just be my nostalgic brain, it just felt like there was more of it going on then for this time for Duke Nukem and stuff like that than there is now, because it all feels very formulaic. And again, I know we do get games like we do get from indie titles and stuff like that, not always the AAA slop, but there are those few out there that are doing something a little bit different here and there. But again, I think because it was just such a fresh thing, we were just seeing so many different things cropping up that were in a mind taking risks here and there. And there were clones, of course, back then, like brought up with the Doom clones and everything like that, trying to base themselves off of that. But that was the thing, like they quickly would they usually would fail, but they also, some, like it was, doing something a little bit different to separate itself and have its own thing. And like, what was it? Dark Forces 1 introduced grenades. And that's what we see, like Duke Nukem also had the pipe bombs and stuff like that. So that's what carries over. Everybody was, they were matching things together, taking what worked from other games, but also still making something that was uniquely to their own systems, their own engine sometimes. Dan Blacker says, pretty sure played it on PS1. Like I said, I saw it on PS1. It was a PC release as well, so it was probably that. Hassan says, yeah, there's no innovations or clever programming solutions. Devs just buy an Unreal Engine subscription. Yeah, was it Unity, Unreal, was it the Crysis engine, Crytek engine from the Crysis devs? But I don't think there's been anything that's really come from that anymore. And I think there was one for Battlefield as well, but I kind of forget what that one was called.
Right. We added humor to the game, interactive environments.
I love that the animators took the time to show Duke perched on top of an alien neck taking a dump.
That is just the best thing ever.
And you add in that interactivity, you add in the character of Duke Nukem, you add in their over-the-top mentality and, the weaponry and that was in that game. You had an instant classic with Duke Nukem that took first-person shooters to the next level.
Yeah, even the shrink ray's fun. Like it's just
the shrink ray was fun.
Shrink people with a shrink ray. You could go up and stomp on them. I just thought I smiled and laughed.
That was hilarious to do in the multiplayer on the N64 too. Like I said,
my combat boots that were used as the boot, and then of course Richard Gray will tell you later. One weekend they needed to make an art tweak. He wore his own combat boots.
That's my foot. Those are I still have the boots right here in Texas. He has a pair too, but I can tell those are my blue jeans. And
he loves to brag about how he stole my glory by putting his foot in the game.
You son of a bitch!
You one-eyed freak.
When I recorded the first Duke Nukem 3D game,
come get some.
I did not know there was any kind of following whatsoever until 1999 or 2000 when I got my first invitation to a convention. I was flown across country, first class, put up in a really nice hotel, and they pay me and the fans acted like I'm some kind of superstar, and I was baffled by it. I was absolutely blown away that people came out to see me. At the end of the convention, they said, hey, thank you so much. You helped bump up our attendance by like 5,000 people this year. And I'm like, what? I can't believe anybody even knows this game. And they couldn't believe that I didn't know Duke Nukem 3D was a big deal.
Early days of the internet, and also just, you know, that was the thing. Like, I'm trying to think of like how to put this, because like I mean, like I said, I didn't play Duke Nukem until it came to the N64, and I'd say like, especially for this time too, like with certain voice actors, they did get and we started getting more voice acting in games, spiked their popularity in big ways. You know, even probably with, I mean, I'll always, for some of the best voice acting, I always defer to the Legacy of Kain series personally. I think that has some of the best acting done from Simon Templeman, Michael Bell, Tony Jay, Rene Auberjonois, and all of them. Like, they all did, the whole team did a fantastic job on that.
Let's rock. Duke 3D was a game that kind of put us at the same level as id Software, and so that was like, okay,
Doom is for wimps.
So Duke turned into a fantastic game. If I had to pick between doing the first Quake and doing Duke, I would pick Duke. I feel more happy about what we did.
It was so fun. I had so much fun playing through that entire game. They did what they needed to do right. That's why you still know who Duke Nukem is now.
Hell
20-some years later.
Wait, how did
Duke Nukem and I share very few commonalities, except that we both like bubblegum. Other than that, we're nothing alike.
The question is, do you have bubblegum?
Oh, damn. And I'm all out of gum.
Okay, how do you do this though and not include the fact that Megadeth also did either a cover or did the theme song for Duke Nukem? Like, how do you not include that? Like, that is the most badass theme song on top of it. Like, I would have had to have that included in this. Come on. Oh, what a time. What a time. Duke Nukem 3D. Still hail to the king, baby. Still the best. Hey, Sparta Chris over on the Rumble side. How you doing, sir? He says, yes. But what about the plight of LGBT and minority people that wanted to live non-conforming alternative lifestyles? How did they see themselves in these games, and how they helped the gaming? Well, they had to sit down and stay in their zone and know that we were ruling the roost. And people just enjoyed the damn games. I mean, like we got nitpicky with games, but, or, you know, we could get picky with games, but like we were having way more fun back then. Dan Blackbird says Metal Gear Solid is always hard to beat for voice cast. True. Another solid set cast for that game for sure. Especially, you know, I mean, they did great, you know, 1 through 4, fantastic as well, but I don't know, just to me, just for the story and stuff like that, Legacy of Kain is just always so dear. Even though I love Metal Gear, I do, but yeah. Dan Blackbird says any of the games without a 5 in the title. Exactly. Oh wait, yeah, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 2, and Defiance. And we don't, there's 4 games. So, you know, as well. So yeah, as long as you don't get that 5th in the title, you're solid. Anytime you try and involve 5 games, you run into some iffy territory there. Hassan says it was a more civilized age for gaming back then. Obi-Wan, probably. I mean, I always love taking that. You know, it was before the dark times, before the, you know, insert. Just meant for Metal Gear Solid. What? Just Metal Gear Solid 1 for the best voice cast. Because yeah, I mean that was before David Hayter, before he got all really gravelly with the Solid Snake voice and everything. Good times. But yeah, I just thought that was cool. Some Duke Nukem history, love and creation, all that jazz.
Thank you for watching this clip from Respawn Roast Cantina. Please like and subscribe if you like what you see, and check out the full episode.